Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. On Tuesday, I received some very sad news about someone who I only just met who had passed away from COVID-19. It was so fast, I actually can't believe it. He'd put a message into our PSA Facebook group mid-October around forming a mastermind so that we could all help one another with accountability and growing our business. 6 of us all grouped together and we had a fabulous first call together with a meeting just less than a week before he was actually admitted to hospital. We then messaged each other to and fro, checking how he was doing, and he seemed to be on the mend. Alas, it was not the case, and he passed away just 2 weeks after he'd been admitted. It was so fast, and I just wanted to pass this on to remind everyone that we should not take life for granted, because in a flash, it can all disappear. The last year has been filled with uncertainty for so many of us, and yet one certainty I hold on to is that there are always many learnings to be taken from these challenging experiences. What have I learned over these last few months? That life is much more fragile than I ever imagined it to be. I've often taken it for granted in the past. This has now changed. I'm now simply grateful just to be alive. I now focus on what difference I can make in my time on this planet, always thinking, what can I do to help others? That in a moment, everything changed worldwide. I've had to adapt, as have we all. The transition I've made has taken a lot of time and effort. It's not always been easy. That having a resilient mindset takes me a long way, but not all the way. I've also needed to take responsibility. That those on the front line are real life superheroes. I clap and salute all those people who continue to step forward to help in their own unique way. Superheroes truly exist and show up at work every day to make a difference to others' lives. That I have so much more to learn in life. Shakespeare said this best in As You Like It. The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. These all seem obvious learnings, but I used to take my health for granted, and I don't anymore. We only get one life. Make it count, help others, and stay safe. What are you grateful for, and what have been your learnings? Reach out and let me know via social media on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. So let's get started with this week's reflections and observations. This is my 16th R&O. I love these episodes as it brings together worlds that would never really meet in reality. I mean, where would you find Sir Ranulph Fiennes, Stephen Hawking, Roger Bannister, Jim Rohn and Calvin Coolidge all in the same conversation? Well, on the Focus on Why podcast you do. So the first episode up today is episode 107, Plan to Retire with Claire Yew. Claire reached out to me because she wanted to share her journey in the hope that it would inspire others to question what their plans are for the future. This podcast episode was called Plan to Retire, but I don't actually see retirement on the horizon for Claire. Retirement in the old-fashioned sense of the word, that is. I imagine that Claire will always keep her mind or her hands busy. Her message around retirement is to build multiple streams of income that will allow her flexibility and the freedom to choose how she lives out her later years in her life. And I don't think true retirement, will be on the cards. Claire had some career advice from the well-known English theoretical physicist, cosmologist and author Stephen Hawking. She asked him what she should study, and he recommended molecular biology. However, she chose to ignore his advice and pursued veterinary science instead. Working hard, climbing up the corporate ladder, a casual conversation one day with her partner at the time instigated Claire's pursuit of her why. He told her that he was planning to retire at the age of 45, and this prompted Claire to question her own retirement plan for the first time in her life. So, at the age of 30, she started to actively search for a way to make this retirement possible using the concept of leverage. First, she invested in her own education, then she started to invest in property. And she continues to do this to build the future for her children, to give them opportunities and flexibilities in life that she believed were not necessarily available to her when she grew up. She wants to give them the opportunity to do anything, to pursue their own passions in a way that money doesn't have to be the barrier. She's given them an option to learn whatever they want to dream in whatever they want to be in the future without having to think, is this job going to give me enough money? And talking of money, my next episode focuses on the funding landscape for SME business owners, focusing on the why, the how, the where and what around the funding options available to businesses. Episode 108, Persistence Always Wins with Jeremy Meadowcroft. And the theme for this episode is persistence. Finding the right lending is not always easy, and according to Jeremy, persistence is key. Jeremy quoted the 30th US president back from the 1920s, Calvin Coolidge. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talents will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And at the time, a Democratic admirer, Alfred E. Smith, also said his great task was to restore the dignity and prestige of the presidency when it had reached the lowest ebb in our history, in a time of extravagance and waste. Now that was said back in the 1920s, and in the same week that this episode came out, the 46th President of the United States was voted in. President-elect Joe Biden. And he shared his pledge to be a president who seeks to not to divide but to unify. He talked of his wife Jill being a military mum and an educator, that she has dedicated her life to education, and that teaching isn't just what she does, it's who she is. And also, Jeremy quotes the great Jim Rohn, saying that if you're passionate about something, learn about it and become a student of it and teach it, because if you're on purpose with it, you're naturally interested. And I love Jim Rohn, and if you don't know him, I highly recommend checking out all the free videos that are available on YouTube. In Jeremy's final words, he reminds us that in difficult times to keep our wits about us and keep our chin up. He says to remember persistence will always win the day. And if you can't see the solution right in front of you, just try and think broader. Who do you know? In not just your network, but who in your network may have another network or another network? And the answer is normally out there somewhere. People generally don't refer people they don't like. So, just be nice to each other. Try and help each other first. And let's try and share that knowledge around the circle so that everybody benefits. But you've got to try and find the right people. I believe that this message is so important that I've included it in full in this episode again. I've recently had conversations with 4 people in both my existing and newly extended network, where we have agreed a mutual skills swap, exchanging our knowledge to help one another in our businesses. A perfect example of where we are thinking broader so that everyone benefits. What do you help with? What do you need help with? How could you help others? Grit, perseverance, determination, resolution, extraordinary effort, focus, hard work, willpower, persistence, whatever words you choose to describe what you have, they all amount to the same outcome, success. Success. Why do some people succeed when others fail and some win one day and then lose the next? And the answer is that it's all in the mind. It's all in our minds. And in episode 109, Science of Why with Pieter Kruger, Pieter and I explore his role as a clinical psychologist in elite sport and corporate business. He says that what we see at the moment is that people have significant elevated levels of anxiety, mainly as a result of the uncertainty. So uncertainty becomes a fascinating thing because the human mind, for evolutionary reasons and for survival, hates uncertainty. So as soon as there's uncertainty, we either fill in information for ourselves, and this is where we see a lot of conspiracy theories coming from, or we seek reassurance. These are Pieter's words, and they echo my opening words of this episode. Pieter talks of well-being and performance in life and advocates that the single most important thing is to have a plan. He shares that people who make it to the top never do it just by winging it and hoping to get there. They have a plan for their well-being, a plan for their performance, a plan for building relationships. And having a plan is something that I talk about all the time. Hence my tagline, have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. And as Pieter says, ultimately, it's all about the why. One of my favourite stories from this episode is when Pieter shares a special moment from London 2012, where Sir Ranulph Fiennes is talking to a group of the medical professionals, and someone in the audience reaches out and asks him, "Why do you do what you do?" And his reply was, "If you have to ask, you'll never know." Wow, what a brilliant retort. This is an explorer who has spent his entire life in pursuit of extreme adventure in some of the most ambitious private expeditions ever undertaken. He has an incredible why. What's your why? And why do people do what they do? This is a question that Pieter asks. It's a constantly developing science, but learning how the brain functions is key to managing and enhancing performance and well-being. In short, we do really need to know more about how we think. This was a fascinating conversation with Pieter in a topic where we are learning more about our brain every day and its functioning. What will we know in 100 years' time? Thinking back to what we knew 100 years ago, my goodness, it could be infinite what we understand about our brain. And it's just fascinating to think about that question. What will we know in 100 years' time? Next up is episode 110, Why Not Me, with Lisa Brown. Lisa talks of her frustration of having worked in the NHS for over 20 years, that there is a perception that you cannot hold a senior role as a part-time position. And when she moved to Devon from London, she found it really difficult to find a role that matched her ability. So she decided to leave nursing and pursue a passion in property. And it was a chance encounter, one of those sliding doors moments that led Lisa to develop a property for a young man who had complex needs, and then subsequently led her to discover the space of supported living. Lisa loved being able to combine her nursing brain with her property brain to create a home for this individual. And despite encountering many challenges in developing this property, she felt that there was huge potential for her to be able to bridge a gap between these two industries and provide many solutions. A truly inspirational journey that Lisa takes us on in this episode, and one that wouldn't look out of place on a DIY SOS episode, certainly involving as many tears as their programmes do. Lisa wants to understand why so few property investors let their properties to supporting living providers, and she set about finding a solution to connect investors and developers with those in the supporting living space, and she created the Supported Living Gateway. Lisa says it's about people having the right life, isn't it? It's about people having the right opportunities, regardless of their disability or where they come from. It's making sure people have support either to transition to taking their own tenancies or to be able to stay somewhere and feel secure and safe. Now, Lisa has a why not me philosophy, and it's a powerful one because it opens up possibility and embraces empowerment. It is congruent with knowing your purpose and being authentic. And Lisa's vision is strong, and one which is creating a huge ripple effect across the supported living community. Lisa finishes with a message that I've been honing in on this week, is that you only have just one life. It's very, very precious. You need to live it, and you need to do good with it. Next up is episode 111, Performing as You, with Diana Theodores. Wow. Again, the power of your story comes to the forefront. In fact, it becomes centre stage. Diana asks the questions, what does great performance give us as human beings? And how do we take that inspirational energy and use that to bring us forward in this world to really make a difference with our own unique signature, our voices, our own personal humanity? All great questions. And Diana has made it her quest in life to answer those questions. Applying years of experience from the theatre stage to the business stage. She ignites leaders worldwide, from energy to entertainment, sports to finance, and retail to government. She pulls back the safety curtain of corporate conformity, connects to their creative fire, and steps into the spotlight of their fullest leadership present. It's really about what the story is that we're telling ourselves. What's the story you're telling yourself? Actually stop and consciously and intentionally reflect on that story. Often, you'll find that story is out of date and the story is no longer serving us. What's a new story that's a much more accurate and potent one that could replace that story, that could help ourselves as individuals, could help our teams, could help our organisation? How often do you stop and consciously reflect on your story? These are all the questions that Diana shares in this episode. And I want you to be honest. Does the busyness of your life get in the way of your business? This episode covered such a diverse range of topics. However, I believe it all comes back to purpose and meaning in life. Diana talks of belonging and of values, something that I speak about all the time with my clients. We discuss the importance of being in a role of working in a business that's aligned with your values. And it's easier to stand out and be unique, yet still feel you belong, if your values, your vision, and your mission are all aligned. Diana signs off by saying, "You are large, you are multitudes," citing words from Walt Whitman. And I'll just go back and just share what his exact words were. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. What Diana loves about this is that she's advocating that you just play your whole range of you. You have so much to bring to the world, and the world needs you. All of these parts of us come together to form a unique being. Sometimes our story may be complicated and confusing, but that is what makes us human. And that's where I'll leave it today. Well, actually, just one final thought for today, taking it back to where we started. Please focus on your health because you only have one body. So take care of it. Stay safe, everyone. Best wishes until the next one. Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star Apple Podcast review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook and become a member of my inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. I help people to focus on their why with clarity, uniting their passion with their purpose with a plan to create the life they truly desire. If you would like me to help you focus on your why, then please book a free 20-minute coaching call via calendly.com/Amy Rowlinson. And if you haven't already, please sign up for the Friday Focus weekly newsletter via my website, amyrowlinson.com. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.